hopefully.
Anybody home?
Avi, hello, can you hear
Cynthia,
me? Yes.
hi.
Hi, can you see me?
Yeah, now I can see you. Yeah, in a wide long shot. How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm in Sheffield, Avi. We are all here in Sheffield. So let's welcome Avi with a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and I'm sorry for the trouble with the connection. Let me
No.
just let me just explain some technicals about asking questions here, and then I'll come back to you, okay, Avi?
All right.
So if you want to ask questions using your smartphone, you go to slido.com and then you use that code. And Mita Sudi, who is sitting here from the films team, she will relay your questions to us, okay? Avi, I would like to start by a quite general question, but it's, I think, important. I remember on the Q&A in Berlinale, you said something like, about why you made this film, you said something like, because nobody wants to watch it, something like that. And I was thinking, I mean, you have been in your films, you have appeared in your films, but this time is very specific, it's very particular. You are playing the role of the settler, and you are making a very precise journey across these years and doing a very cold analysis of strategy, right? So I wanted to ask you why this project came now. After all the films you have done, that's not all of them talked specifically about these questions, but all of them together give many times analysis of the Israeli society and situation. Why now you wanted to do precisely this project?
The truth is that the now is always good. I mean, if you think about the 54-year occupation, then why not now? It's it's the coincidence that brought up this film is not about history. It's about the fact that Breaking the Silence has decided to do a project of collecting testimonies of soldiers who served in the occupied territory since 67 till 2000. Breaking the Silence normally collected testimonies from 20,000 and on. And me, as a board member of Breaking the Silence and the filmmaker, I started looking at those testimonies and editing them for single stories so that we can all look at. And at a certain point, I realized that there was a larger scope story to be told. So, and this story can be told any time. It could have been told 10 years ago. It could be told in 10 years from now. And so why not? I mean, it's there. It's on. It's ongoing. It's not going away. Oh, so it's absolutely necessary to tell this story.
And Avi, going to the testimonies of the soldiers and the former soldiers that you show in your film, it's very interesting that they are I don't. They are quite precise, but also there is a distance. There is I would say, a dryness in those testimonies. There is no moment when we see any sort of psychological exploration of the psychological individuality of the soldiers towards, with some very rare exceptions. So, for example, when Guy Benner talks about throwing his things away, or some, but there is no moment when we see a soldier crying, for example, which is something we have seen in documentaries paid by, even, sponsored by Israeli TV. So the testimonies are quite dry. And I wanted to ask you first if this was something that was a conversation with them, if it was intentional. I'm sure it was, but how you managed this question, this barrier between giving voice to these soldiers and helping them, revealing their stories, but at the same time keeping the conversation away from specific psychologies and individual psychologies.
The truth, Cynthia, is that I did not conduct those conversations. They were done they were taken by researchers of Breaking the Silence, and those witnesses spoke the way they spoke. They were not led to speak in a certain way. In all interviews that there were long interviews, I mean, longer than an hour mostly, each and every one of the witnesses spoke about their understanding of the situation, their reflections on what they've done, etc., etc., etc. And some even, I mean, they were, some were very emotional, etc. But my decision when editing the film was to, it's a manual. It's not about what you think, it's about what you do. And my decision was very clear to remove all or most. In some, it's impossible to remove, like the guy that speaks about Sharon Chagoli, who speaks about how everything is reminded to him by the club that he was holding. So my decision was to deal with the how, with the mechanics, with the procedures, and not with the emotions, etc. It's a manual, and when someone cooks a pasta and starts telling you how it connects to his mother, to his grandmother, I find it uninteresting.
So again, I go back to the beginning and rephrasing my question: why a manual? Why were you interested in providing a manual?
Obviously, this is not how the film was conceived. In the beginning, I thought that if you just allow the viewer to witness the testimonies, this would be enough. But apparently, this is good only for those who are really hardcore addicts to the occupation, and there was a need to organize it somehow. And because the testimonies were organized under certain themes, then the idea of the manual came up. Obviously, there isn't such there isn't a real physical manual, but I'm sure that there is a mental manual. Maybe you know that before I decided to play the expert, I spoke with a lot of people who were engaged in people from the establishment who played different roles in constructing this manual, and they all refused the idea of the manual. They said that I got it all wrong, that there was no manual. And this is how I understood that I had to play the manual, because no one will admit being a part of a preconceived idea or target or goal to do what Israel is doing. So the manual then at that moment became even more necessary, because people refused this option, or people from the establishment refused this option, which meant the refusal was assuring me that I was on the right track.
Maybe, yes, we have
I
questions.
hope this is not a non-smoking Q&A.
Absolutely
I can smoke,
not.
right?
I wish I could smoke one with you, Avi, but I can't. I'm on stage. But be my guest. It's wonderful to see people smoking on cinema. Mita, questions from the audience. Just a second.
Thank you. I know we've discussed this a little bit already, but it's the first question. I'm going to go from the top to the bottom as much as we can. The question is, some of the interviewees look shaken by what they did. What are the psychological consequences on the young soldiers on executing these orders?
Obviously, I don't know. Again, this is an archive film, so my contact with some of the witnesses, or many of the witnesses, is happening now, and I am showing them the film and listening to their reactions. But obviously, none of the witnesses that decided to collaborate with breaking the silence in providing those testimonies is not a supporter of the occupation. These are people that some of them entered their military service clueless, or some entered clueless, and some learned a lot during their service. Breaking the Silence was founded by the crazy energy of one person, Yehuda Shaul, and Yehuda finished his or was released from service in 2003, and approached photographer Mickey Kratzman and myself, wanting to do a photographic exhibition of photos taken by soldiers during the service. By the way, this photo exhibition is still running. Recently, it was in Portugal. Ai Weiwei came to see, and it's traveling all around. Now, Yehuda Shaul is an Orthodox Jew who, in his teens, studied in a school, in a settlement in the occupied territories in the West Bank, went to do his military service and was shocked by what he had to do and what he was and the experiences he had, and this is what brought him years later to meet Mickey Kratzman and myself. So there must be some kind of impact of the occupation on those witnesses. I can't tell you what it means for them to tell their stories. Obviously, this is something that has to be dealt with. Well, quite a few years ago, I made a film, Z32, about a person who committed a war crime by killing innocent Palestinian policemen as a revenge operation. He was an elite unit soldier, and he completely allowed me to document him. And in the film, you see also him talking to his partner, to his girlfriend, about what is done. Now, I followed him up for quite a time after the film was released, because I was worried about the consequences of this confession, of what society would say, so Israeli society, and what his psyche would lead him to. Until now, everything is okay. Now, obviously, those testimonies collected by Breaking the Silence are not dealt with such a particular observation like I did with Z32. But it's very clear from when you look at the people talking, it's very clear that this has not left them untouched.
Next question.
Thank you very much. Can you speak about the decision in not using music and no sound in the archive footage?
Well, it's not a decision not to use music or sound. It's a decision to turn everything down, to silence everything. We tend to think of cinema as a visual art, whereas cinema, the sound in cinema is so much more effective than the visual. Then we look at American cinema, look at Hollywood cinema. There isn't a second without some kind of soundtrack in the background leading you emotionally somewhere. And I thought that if you want to really get down to the nitty-gritty of things, you have to look at them and not listen to what the person behind is trying to push you to. So I decided to remove the sound of most of the archive footage and leave it silent, so that you will be forced to look at it and not listen. It's something I think in any film, if you remove the sound from much of the footage, you will have a very different impression from when the sound is on.
Thank you very much. Has there been any pushback from pro-Israeli forces, government actors, upon the release of your documentary? Have you been silenced?
The sound was a little bit cut. I didn't get what the question.
Has there been a lot of pushback from pro-Israeli forces, government actors, upon the release of your documentary? Have you been silenced?
Well, the film was not released in Israel yet. None of the Israeli cinema funds have come on to co-produce the film. No Israeli broadcaster is there to broadcast it. And even lately, the DocAviv Film Festival, which is the documentary film festival of Tel Aviv in Israel, has rejected the film. So yes, I mean, I don't have I don't have like Julian Assange. I don't have emails showing how my film was decisively rejected, but I feel that it's happening. We are waiting now for the decision of Jerusalem Film Festival. I don't know the date of their rejection, when they announce their rejections, but I'm anticipating. Anyway, the film in Israel will have to find an alternative way to be accessible to Israelis. And like in my previous film that was also rejected by all broadcasters, we'll probably use social media to try and reach Israelis. Well, obviously, this is not, well, many don't want to look at the mirror that the film provides.
Next question. Thank you for your intense, remarkable film. Was it difficult to write your pieces to camera to use such almost Kafka language?
Again, I didn't get the question.
Apologies. Thank you for your intense, remarkable film. Was it difficult to write your pieces to camera to use such almost Kafka language?
What does Kafka language mean?
Kafka. It's like a Kafkaesque language.
Sorry. Well, look, once I conceived the idea of the manual, and once I realized that there was a need for an expert to lead you through the manual, and once I understood that the fact that nobody from the establishment would accept this idea of the manual, I actually, it was a good moment. Yeah, you know, it was a failure, but failure is always a good moment. And I understood that this was an opportunity to be able to to tell the story, I wouldn't, well, I didn't think of Kafka, but I thought of Machiavelli in a Machiavellian way, in an ironic, cynical, Machiavellian way. Because if you think about it, those people, I don't know who they are, but they sit somewhere and they make decisions, and they have been making decisions for the last 54 years, whoever they are. They had something in mind that was totally cynical. Otherwise, I cannot. Israel wants to portray the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza, the settlements, etc., as something that can be defended as security or whatever, but it's very clear that someone in the background, some people in the background sit there and create some kind of a scheme, an abstract, whatever you want to call it, of how to obtain the land. And this was what I decided to play when I decided to be the expert. This possible person behind all this, who is scheming it all up. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Do you think the modern day military personnel have become more apathetic, even though now they are more likely to be caught committing offenses on video?
You'll have to.
You need to make
Sorry.
It needs to be slowly because of the connection.
Of course. Thank you. Do you think the modern day military personnel have become more apathetic, even though now they are more likely to be caught committing offenses on video?
I don't know. I'm not. Truthfully, I'm not a real expert. I'm definitely not on how military operates. I'm a filmmaker. I'm trying to figure out what's the reality that surrounds me. So I can't really tell you or provide insights to how the soldiers are, or what they think, or what they feel. But it's definitely not going in the right direction.
Thank you. Some of the stories the soldiers shared will stay with me for a long time. Was there a testimony that you were especially moved or struck by?
I'm sorry, I didn't get it.
If there was one testimony that particularly struck you or moved you.
Yes, of course, several. There was this story of Sharon Chogoli, the guy who says that all his memories are attributed to the club. That everything is done, that the club was the extension of him, and that he beat up a father, a mother, children, etc. Or the story of another person, another witness, Yanai Israeli, who talks. He's the one who talks about shooting those kids who try to harm the separation barrier, and his energy is such that wow, it's so strong, it's so well, he speaks so quickly that it's hard to follow in Hebrew. I don't know what you did with the English subtitles. So yes, many of those witnesses, some of them I know personally, but most of them I don't, have left a very strong mark on me.
Avi, one last question. I'm sure you will continue making films, and I'm very happy about that, and I think everyone here is. But I wanted to ask you if, I mean, there are younger filmmakers and a new generation of Israeli filmmakers, and I wanted to ask you if you feel that there is an idea of, in these younger generations of filmmakers, of cinema as a space to discuss these things, but also to re-educate the way we look at what is happening around us, the same way you are doing with this film and with others. If you feel that Israel, at the same time that these things are going on, at the same time that Israeli TV is commissioning propaganda every day, if you still feel that at the same time there are filmmakers that are able to resist to that and make relevant films, if you are hopeful about cinema in Israel.
Well, I'm sorry, but the answer is yes and no. On one hand, you meet some young filmmakers, like, for instance, Rona Segal, whose short film Mission Hebron is now traveling worldwide, who is very committed to, well, I believe to what she believes in, to her ideology. And on the other hand, you see endless films that deal with nothing, they could come from anywhere, at any time, as if the present reality doesn't exist. I've been teaching for many years, and this is the story of what we go through. You meet young people, some of them, very few, are engaged, committed, and the majority has just been under the press machine and have accepted being pressed.
Thank you very much, Avi. Thank you very much for this conversation.
No, see, I hope to see you soon in person.
And I hope to welcome you in Sheffield as soon as possible. Next edition, maybe? Thank you. Thank you very much for staying.